All right, so I am back once again. We still have the Kyle Kulinski Good Politic Guy crossover in full effect as he is still out on his honeymoon right now. I think he'll be back with some more content for you guys on Sunday or Monday or whenever his next show is, so look forward to that. But in the meantime, hopefully I can keep you guys satiated just with a little bit of filler content. So with that being said, I got a lot to get into here today. So first off, I wanted to start with Donald Trump. Some more recap from that wild town hall that he did over on CNN just a couple of days ago. So I wanted to talk about his abortion responses because I think this is pretty revealing about how he's going to be operating in the 2024 space, because he's put himself in this impossible position right now, stuck between his more like rabid evangelical, totally anti-choice, pro-federal ban on abortion supporters on the one hand, and then he's also stuck between the realization that those kinds of policies are just not even remotely popular among the American people and could prevent him from winning in 2024. So first, we got a question here from one of the audience members who's going to give him an interesting question, and then he's just basically going to completely flap around and flounder and not really have any adequate or specific response to the question. So let's just go ahead and jump into this first one.
How do you plan to appeal to women voters in New Hampshire who are concerned about the Dobbs decision and how states may change their laws?
It's such a great question, and it was such a great victory, and people are starting to understand it now. You know that they wanted to bring it back to the states, but that was probably the least important part of that victory. Getting rid of Roe v. Wade was an incredible thing for pro-life because it gave pro-life something to negotiate with. Pro-life had absolutely nothing being stuck in Roe v. Wade to negotiate with. And now what's happening, and I see it all over, deals are being made, deals are going to be made, and look, everybody that was president wanted to get rid and tried to get rid of Roe v. Wade.
You mean
for 50
Republicans?
years. Republicans. For 50 years, this has been going on. Actually, a couple of Democrats, too. But for 50 years, this has been going on. I was able to do it, and I was very honored to do it. But by doing it, things are happening that are very, very positive. And I happen to believe in the exceptions, the life of the mother, rape, incest.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess at least at the end there, he says he's in favor of, the exceptions of rape, incest, the life or health of the mother and all of that stuff. But, at the same time, those aren't real exceptions. I mean, I've seen so many different horror stories from around the country already as tons of these conservative state legislatures have passed bills to restrict abortion, even with some of these exceptions. The reality of the situation on the ground is that it's not a black and white situation. For example, if there's like some situation where the health of the mother is in jeopardy, well, where exactly do you draw that line? I've seen horror stories of some women who the doctor will basically tell them, because they don't want to be sued, they don't want to be thrown in jail or lose their license, they'll tell them like, okay, you may be in jeopardy right now, your health may be at risk, but we basically need you to wait until you are almost on your deathbed. Okay, there are cases of like women who are like in the middle of like bleeding out or having like partial miscarriages and just terrible situations where they then can't get the abortion even with the exceptions, because it's not a black and white situation. It's not an easy decision to be making, especially when you have all of these threats from the government within these conservative states hanging over your head. Also, I mean, we live in the United States of America. Do you know how much of a backlog there is on like rape kits, or even being able to prove that you were raped or sexually assaulted and that that's what led to a pregnancy? I mean, it's not as cut and dry as they try to make it out to seem. It's mostly just a cop-out from the right because they don't want to seem as extreme as they are. But then even before that, right? Keep in mind, the actual question that was asked here was, what would you say to women who are worried about some of these new laws coming into effect to restrict abortion rights, given the fact that you were responsible for the overturning of Roe v. Wade? And his response was to say, it was great. I mean, he's literally just like, it was a great situation. Great things are happening. People are negotiating. I mean, like, what are you really saying? What are you actually in favor of? Which is something we're going to get to here in a second, because Caitlin Collins asked him probably 500 times what his actual specific position is. Like, what week would you cut it off? Are you trying to apply some sort of a trimester standard? What's your actual position here? And he just refused to answer a billion times. But first, before that aspect of it, I want to get to this part of it, because this was another thing that he said where he's talking about how Democrats or liberals are actually the real extremist ones instead of the anti-choice people, because they want to like remove babies after they're born and then murder them after the fact, I guess. He's not the only one who's brought this up before, but let's just hear what he's got to say about this.
Yeah, the way I look, I think it's very important to say this. I consider the other side to be radical. Because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will. Remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? I said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute the baby.
But, Mr. President, can we talk about what you would do if you are
No, but these are the radical people.
Re-elected?
It's not the pro-life people that are radical.
But if you are re-elected and you're back in the Oval Office...
Okay, so then she gets into her questioning about what his actual beliefs are, what his policy position is on abortion, and he refuses to answer, so we're going to watch that. But, I mean, again, this is something that many conservatives bring up as sort of a counter, or not even like a counter argument, but more just like a complete deflection, because they don't want to actually own up to what their position is, so they just try to imply that, oh no, it's actually the other side, they're the radicals, they're the extremists, right? Put your attention on them, we're not the radicals, we're not the extremists, right? But it's just complete nonsense. I mean, listen, if you want to sit down and have a debate, I mean, the vast majority of the country is like roughly on the same page in terms of just putting back the standard of Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was just like, you know, the standard that was in place before they overturned all of these things was basically just, you're protected in the first trimester, in the second trimester, you can, states can have some sort of regulations, but you can't outright outlaw it, and then in the third trimester, you can have, you know, more strict bans that are put in place. That's what it was. It has nothing to do with like, you know, post-birth abortions or killing a baby once it gets out of the womb. And I mean, a vast majority also of abortions take place in the earlier parts of the pregnancy. Okay, a woman is not just going to like wait until they're 8.5 months pregnant and then just on a whim decide, you know what, I'm kind of bored of this, I'm done with this, I don't want this baby, let me get an abortion just because I want to. Even in some of those cases where it's later in the pregnancy, it's usually just to like save the life of the mother, or if the pregnancy becomes unviable, or if there's some, you know, dangerous type of thing that could unfold. That's the reality of it, but they're just using this as a weak, kind of pathetic deflection because they don't want to own up to what their actual position is. So with that being said, now we're going to jump to this one where she is desperately trying to hammer Trump on what exactly his position on abortion is. So let's see him just flip-flop around 100 times during this.
Would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
What I'll do is negotiate so that people are happy.
Just to be clear, Mr. President, you would sign a federal abortion ban into law.
I said this. I want to do what's right. And we're looking
But
to
I think
do
this
that.
is a really important question for you to answer, because this is something every Republican, including those who are running against you for the nomination, are being asked about, is would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
And many of them are going to give you the same answer as I am. First of all, I am honored to have done what I did.
If they send it to your desk, would you sign it?
Some people are at 6 weeks. Some people are at 3 weeks,
where's
2
President
weeks.
Trump?
President Trump is going to make a determination what he thinks is great for the country and what's fair for the country.
I just want to give you one more chance, though, because you did not answer whether or not you'd sign a federal abortion ban or how many weeks into pregnancy you believe abortion should be banned.
Yeah, but I've
given you
the answer probably 4 times already.
Which one
I'm
is it,
looking,
though?
I'm looking at a solution that's going to work. Very complex issue for the country.
Okay, so what was that? I mean, what was that answer? Absolutely nothing. Okay, he's dancing around it exactly because of what I said at the beginning of this video. He doesn't want to piss off his evangelical supporters. He doesn't want to alienate the vast majority of the American people that are not in favor of something like a federal abortion ban. And so he just can't answer the question. But I mean, this is honestly a good indication for Democrats, right? I mean, obviously, you know, I would support them focusing a lot more on like actual true left-wing economic populism and just materially improving people's lives and taking sort of like an FDR 2.0 minus the xenophobia and racism approach to politics right now, and that would be what actually wins them elections. But if you wanted to just hammer Trump over the head with something going into 2024, he just gave you the formula, right? He can't answer this question. He is trapped. He is stuck in this position, and he knows it, all right? She asked him, what, 10, 12 times the same question, and he had no actual specifics on it. So, I mean, there you go. It's you know, been interesting seeing Trump having to deal with this abortion issue. I'm sure it's going to get even more interesting as we have, you know, potential GOP rivals that are jumping in the race. Some are going to be more extreme than him. I don't think there's anybody who's like, you know, to the left of him on abortion that's in the race as of right now. But I mean, also keep in mind, Trump is somebody who, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think he gives a single solitary shit about abortion, right? Okay, if you asked him a couple decades ago what his position on abortion was, I'm sure that he would have been like, I don't care. Okay, he's probably paid for like 50 abortions in his life. All right, this guy does not have a principled stance on this. He just used that base of evangelical supporters to help win him the election in 2016. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. So, I mean, there you have it. Trump completely floundering and flip-flopping all over the place on this abortion question.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.